Well, greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome to this week's special edition of Feet. Toes and arches, heels and ankles, feet, feet, feet. Quentin Tarantino's wet dream come true, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Episode 9 Aftershow. We are so glad that you are here to join us here today as we talk about the second to last episode of the season. I cannot believe it's almost over. We got one more episode to go. Going to be talking about last night's episode. I'm, of course, joined here by Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing?
John, you know what? The quality of this show has restored my faith in humanity.
It's a really, really good show. Sitting next to him, of course, is Chris Carr. Chris, how you doing?
This restored your faith in humanity? These people restored your faith? What's going on? Are you hurt?
The portrayal of the awfulness of these people. The fact that there's a consistency to their awfulness, and it's portrayed in such a beautiful way.
All right.
Or at least in a very impactful way.
Yes,
that's the best way to put it. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to talk about our impressions, and we're going to be talking about this in a very open, spoilery way. So if you guys have not seen the newest episode of House of the Dragon yet, you may just want to add this video to your favorites list and come on back later. So that being said, we're going to give our quick impressions of the show, and then we're going to spend the rest of our time taking questions and thoughts and opinions from you guys. So if you have a thought, opinion, question, or theory about House of the Dragon, go ahead and use the super chat feature and fire that in. We're only going to keep them open for another minute or two, and then we're going to be closing it down. So get that in quickly. All right. So that said, Rob, your general impressions of episode 9 of House of the Dragon.
Well, you know, Chris brought up earlier today on the John Campea show the fact that the structure of Game of Thrones was always at the penultimate episode of the season, the 9th episode, stuff would go down. And while we might not have had a red wedding or a battle of the bastards or something like that, what we did have was the battle lines are drawn.
Yeah.
And it was all the greens, it was all Otto Hightower, win, 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 win. Until the end, when we got a little bit of the Targaryen strike back, and I felt the war has begun. You know, that if you didn't know that the war had begun already by the beginning of this episode, I think by the end of this episode, and I thought it was great, that the Queen Who Never Was stepped up and said, F you.
Yeah.
You know, I know you brought up a good point earlier about what she could have done that she didn't do, but I understand kind of why, because she was still royal. You know, she was still of this house, and she was like, I think in a way, maybe she saw this as her opportunity to be the queen that she never was and really step up and fight for her family or something, because I don't think that if she, I don't know. I love what she did. I love the end of this episode. I loved everything about this episode. It was like watching that episode of Andor this week, John. I was tense.
Yeah.
I was just tense. I was tense the whole time. I'm like, what's going to happen now? You know, to all these characters. And man, what a great episode of TV.
Mm-hmm. It was basically an Otto wins show, because it basically everything from episode 1, everything, the machinations over the 20 years that Otto had laid in place, we saw it all to come fruition. His daughter being the one on the throne, his grandchild being set up to be the next in line, trying to subvert and go behind Rhaenyra's back to get everything in place. And he even had the small council, well, most of the small council, already lined up and ready to go, to the point that it even shocked Alicent. And then Alicent finally going to her dad and putting him in his place to say, like, your dad, I'm queen, and this is how we're going to do things. So there was a bit of that. And yeah, what I said, I was talking to Rob this morning about, it's like, all it would have taken to change the course of the history of Westeros is one word: Dracarys. Mm-hmm. When Rhaenys is on that dragon and facing down all of Alicent and her brood, just to say Dracarys and just burn them all, end of things. But she has a code. She has a code, and she was not willing to go there. But the one thing, I mean, the episode was brilliant. The one thing that I was left really, really wondering, and I haven't seen anybody talk about it. There is a scene where Larys, Middlefinger, and Otto in a room together, and Middlefinger says to him, you know, there's no reason this can't work in your benefit. And then they just left it there. And so I want to know what the comeuppance of all that was. That was kind of crazy. Anyway, I'll get into my other impressions later. But anyway, Chris, you had a chance to watch the episode. What were your general impressions?
I don't want to think of the phrase comeuppance and Lars. I just don't. I want those very
Oh,
separate.
no.
Oh boy.
This was a very intriguing episode because, yeah, it wasn't the typical bloodshed that we get from the Pentultimate, which was really interesting, honestly. I had that expectation. I tried to kind of push that to the back, but we got to see what really happens with the game, right? We see all of the things that have to happen, sequestering all of the servants to get away, locking people in their rooms, all of this stuff, seeing where alliances fall, and then offing people who aren't on board. When Kristen Cole just smacked that sweet Scottish man who was a doctor on Doctor Who, he was a lovely little TARDIS builder. Oh, my heart broke. Oh, gosh. I hate Kristen Cole so much. I don't like him. I can't believe he pulled out his sword to that wonderful dwarf. I can't remember that actor's name, but I always just think of him from The Hobbit. But this episode had a lot going on, and I absolutely understand why at the end here, we don't have Rhaenys say Dracarys. You know, we knew this was coming too because you have to listen to Helena Targaryen. She's always predicting what's going to happen. The minute she said there's a beast below the boards, it was, oh, a dragon's going to burst out somewhere at some moment. Some kind of creature's going to burst out. And I get why she didn't do this. I understand she has a code. She did accidentally kill a lot of innocent people in that building.
I was going to say, I didn't realize it until the second time I watched the scene. I'm like, oh, wait. A lot of people just died.
She killed a lot of peasants,
A lot of people just died.
Okay. But, you know, McTarvish, thank you. That's the actor who's just
Graham
been, yes. He's wonderful.
When you said dwarf, I'm thinking he's a huge dude.
No, he played the dwarf in The Hobbit.
The Lord Commander of the King's Watch.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No. The man who played one of the dwarves in The Hobbit. He was excellent in that. He's excellent in Outlander, and he's wonderful in this. And I've been wondering why he hasn't been better utilized. And that scene in this episode of him standing his ground, pulling off his cloak and saying, I am the King's Guard. I will not do anything
I'll
until
answer only to the king.
Exactly. It was so good.
I did want to see him whoop Kristen's ass.
Oh,
though.
absolutely. I wanted to stab in his stupid handsome face.
Ass.
But I just couldn't her dragon have just taken a little nibble of Aegon? Couldn't you just eaten that horrible
But then
child?
you would have been left with Aemond, which might be even worse.
That's true. That's fair. But I just feel like I understand if this had happened, then the show would be over. I understand narratively.
But then the queen that never was would have always been known as someone who killed the queen.
That's true.
You know, if you think about it, they are royalty, and they do have to comport themselves a certain way.
Well, Allison said something very key to her that I think we need to remember. When Allison goes into her room and she says, look, we all know you should have been on the throne by all right, by right of birth, and she said, by right of temperament.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that temperament is what you saw at the end there.
Absolutely right.
Like, I'm not going to be the one that creates regicide. I'm not going to be the one that determines a war. But you ain't going to pull all this shit without the other side knowing what you're doing. And I'm going to take care of that. So it's, and who knows, maybe after the Civil War and the Dance of Dragons and all that kind of stuff, maybe she's left at whatever point before she dies, she's left to wonder, did I make the right decision in not killing them all? Let's talk about the barefoot in the room.
These time jumps, what happened to get us to this point? They escalated from dinners to whacking to the feet.
I'll tell you what. Now, let's just say on the one point, I thought it was very interesting that before the queen exposes her feet, they close up on his bad foot as he's kind of limping along to take his seat, right? So it's almost, again, the show is great at this, giving exposition without a single line of dialogue. We suddenly get a little bit of a motivation maybe for his fetish, whatever. But I want to know, what was that first conversation like? That's like, can you pass the sauce? And also, can I see your feet? Like, what was that first conversation like when the foot thing came up? Like, how did
Your
he handle
Majesty, remember how I murdered my brother and father without you asking? Your whelks. I want to wank it to your tootsies. Like, ugh.
I saw it as like she was weary and she took her shoes off.
At first.
You sweet summer child.
Do you think she knew what he was doing?
Yes.
Oh, of course she did. Because the moment, like, this was not the first time they did this. Because when she's like, okay, well then how? And he's like, all right, takes off.
I was going to say, she even rolls her eyes
the
about
socks
it. Like,
and whatever. And she knows when to turn his head because, he's reaching into trow and, doing a spinal adjustment on the snake.
That was such a comedian thing to do. You'd think that somebody would have better way to do these things.
Here's the thing. They did this with Joffrey, and they did this with the other Snow, who ended up being the villain of the latter part of
Ramsay Bolton.
Ramsay Bolton, who was Ramsay Snow for a while. They did this with both of them, where we already hate them, and then they do, you know what? The audience doesn't hate them enough, or is grossed out by them enough,
Right.
or is repulsed by them enough. So let's do one more thing. Like Middlefinger is just the worst. An incredible character in the show, but he's just the worst. And they're like, how can we take that to the next level? And it's like with Ramsay Bolton, like we already all hated Ramsay Bolton. And then they're like, how can we make people really hate him? And then he sexually assaulted Sansa, right? So, I mean, this, like, take it to the next level with this creep lord. I mean, I don't know how else to talk about Larys, but
I think they're
creep
setting him
lord.
up for a good death, a good Game of Thrones death, because the thing about him is he's not playing the game well. When you let your freak flag fly, and he's shown his hand too much.
It's not his hand that he's showing.
But you know what I mean. Yes, but he's shown both Otto and Alicent just how awful he really is.
But I could argue that he's playing the game better than anybody, because look at where he was, and now he's basically in the position that he can call his shot now, right? Like he has the ear. Now he has the ear of the hand. He has the ear of the queen. I mean, when you position yourself in a position of power enough that in the presence of the queen, you can yank it out and start choking on it. That's a pretty baller move. No pun intended. That's a move that's like you are in a position of authority. You are in a position of authority when you can do that. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, Otto also showing some true colors. Like, the great things about these characters is that none of them are pure good. None of them are pure evil. We love even Otto. Like Otto, for all of his backstabbing and treason and all that kind of stuff. To this day, I firmly believe he loved Viserys. I firmly believed that despite his own motivations of wanting his own grandson on the throne, he wanted what was best for the kingdom. Like I believe all that. But then in this episode, you see the darker side. It's like, so anybody not with me, just so you know, if you say you're not with me, you die. So with that said, anybody here not with me?
Well, I agree with you. I think that he knows, because remember, Rhaenyra's claim is there's never been a woman on the throne.
Right.
And Otto Hightower is a chauvinist. He doesn't believe a woman belongs on the throne. And what he's trying to do is set up a solid succession of power that the land can believe in, that Westeros will rally behind. Because even when they called for how many people are going to support Rhaenyra's claim, and there's a few people that sat down smart enough to know that, oh, no, I'll bend the knee right now. But there wasn't as many people that stood up as I even might have thought there would be. There's just a few. And I think that Otto really does believe what he's doing is for the best. He's going to tamp this down right away. The succession of power happens, and then we can move forward. I don't think he realizes we don't know what's going to happen, but I think he miscalculates what Rhaenyra and Daemon are going to do.
I do think it's so interesting how there was the race to find Aegon. You bring him to me. And then Alicent, no, you bring him to me. Yeah. I loved that. I thought that was really compelling, especially the twins. You know, those two knights.
Eric and Eric.
Yes, yeah. Really just witnessing the depravity of Aegon and having that conflict of, I know I'm sworn to protect this person who could be king. They don't deserve to be. They are not of the caliber that should be king. And I can't bear witness to that. I thought that was such a wonderful thing for somebody who, up until then, honestly was a pretty tertiary character. He's going to wind up on Dragonstone. He's going to arrive at Dragonstone. Absolutely. And it's interesting to see too if both brothers end up there, because one continued their duty, the other, nah, I'm going with Rhaenys. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not supporting this.
You know, also part of me was wondering, like, Otto's a smart dude, but when he ordered the Lord Commander of the King's Watch to go to Dragonstone, be quick, like he's to go assassinate Rhaenyra, like does he forget there's 4 dragons there?
Yeah.
Like, does he just forget that that you got this long, narrow choke point of a wall that you have to walk along, and there could be like 4 dragons all perched right there. It's like, what's you thinking? You were there before. You know this will not work out the way you hope it'll work out. So that was pretty. Also, we all know that if you don't see somebody die, they didn't die. The white worm. What we see her house burning, we see somebody in the window, and we see the dark cloak walking away. Do we believe she's dead at this point, or do we believe she's still around?
She's still around.
Yeah, I think she's around. She's a fighter.
I also like the fact that Larys kind of put together that she kind of represents Otto's power. That, like, the network of spies, she gives it to him. He obviously pays for it with the price, whatever. By the way, you almost feel sympathetic at one point for Aegon when he's like, I don't want to be king. I am not, first of all, I like that he's self-aware enough that he goes, I'm not cut out to be king. I don't have the, he doesn't say temperament, but he says, I don't have the something for it. And his brother's like, well, you won't get any argument from me. And so you almost start to feel for him. Then, mate, oh, right, this is the guy who raped that poor girl in the last episode. Yeah, fuck him.
We just found out that he goes to child beating fights.
And he has his own child. He
with
has
his
one
own
of his
kids.
own bastard kids in there.
His
Yeah.
little feral babies with their filed nails and their filed teeth murdering each other. Huh. But then, yeah, you're right. Then you have the sympathetic moment of, oh, Aemond, you should let him go. And then
Yeah.
you remember, no, you shouldn't. He's a monster.
But maybe you should let him go so that monster, but like
Yeah.
pull a Lenore, let him go and just
Get outta
disappear,
here.
Get on. I like the way, because it's very reminiscent. That goes, I'll get on a ship. You'll never hear from me again. Blah, blah. You can be king.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that whole thing. And it's like, and Aemond is turning into a more and more interesting character to me.
Absolutely.
Because when we did a time jump, when we met this actor playing him in the last episode, I said, okay, he's just the cold snake now. But in this episode, like when they're standing at the bar and the woman looks at him and says, you've grown, and you see that look of vulnerability and like whatever on his face, is like suddenly, again, no dialogue, tons of exposition, because I suddenly feel like the depth of that character grew like 4 levels just from the look on his face when she says, you've grown. And then even the part where he's decided, when Crispin Glover decides that his brother says, you get to be king. And he's like, he could have stabbed his own brother. He could have like let his brother go, run and go, I'll be king. But there is in him some still kind of sense of duty, however warped or whatever it might be. So that's all still there. So I found that incredibly interesting.
Well, especially that whole moment too. Aegon took him there to lose his virginity, right?
Yes.
And he then later even says to Kristen Cole, neither of us are men who have a taste for depravity. So, you know, he's been a part of this lifestyle that Aegon's cultivated and is very ashamed of it too. He doesn't
Right.
want to be part of that in any way, shape, or form. And that moment does that so beautifully of, yep, that happened, and I don't value that experience, and I don't value any of this.
None of this is good.
Yeah.
Was there anything in the episode for either of you guys that are like, that might be a weak point of this episode? Was there any part of that in this episode that stood out for you?
No, not really. I mean, you know, what I love about this show, John, is that they can set a scene like the opening scene in the small council chamber. That scene, you watch, it was like watching a great game of tennis. People are hitting the ball to various corners of that table, and you're watching all the shifting loyalties and people. They always cut to shots of people talking, like who thinks what. Somebody stands up, they're like, oh no, I better sit down. I mean, in one room, the fate of the universe can be decided, and it's absolutely riveting.
I think there were a couple shots where we spent a little more time that could have gone somewhere else. That one sequence of just people in their rooms staring off wistfully or upset.
Yeah.
I think we could have taken that out to maybe give a little more breathing room to the closing of, oh, you imbecile, about do you love me, mother?
That was a nice line, actually.
It was a great line. Give it a little more breath there so we can have that nice moment between them. Give a little more space, too, for that moment of, I'll consider getting rid of these child fights when you go back to the White Worm, because it immediately cuts off her face. Have a moment of the two of them squared up against each other that's not just the quick thing. Because that just moment of let's cycle through these characters while they're ruminating, that was the only thing that didn't really do it for me. Like, that happened, and I kept just going, All around me are familiar faces. Like,
But it was
move
one
on.
family.
yeah,
It was all the people in this one family contemplating wherever it was they were going to go.
sure. But
And
I
how
didn't
this is
need
all
it.
going to unfold. But though there is also part of
So funny.
Otto. This episode points out and clarifies that Otto underestimates his daughter. Because when she confronts him and says, like, it's like, oh, why'd you get them? Like, we're family or same thing. And it's like, no, you wanted something different than I did. And we are going to do this my way. Because in that small chamber, when it becomes clear to Allison that all of these council members, other than the one guy, have been planning this coup, they are lucky that Allison didn't just upend all of you are going to the wall right now. This ends right now. Because you would have had Kristen in there and the Lord Commander of the King's Watch, both, yes, my queen. It's like all you fuckers are dead. And Otto's in a dungeon somewhere. That's the one place where Otto's plan totally could have fell to pieces.
Yep.
Because at that moment, she's the ruler of Westeros until they anoint a new king. And she could have just easily have gone he probably knew she wouldn't because he's her father and maybe he played to that, but she very well could have gone, this is treason. We're going to do this my way. And y'all, for hiding this from me, you are going to the wall.
And I did love what McTavish says, call me when there's a king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll come back.
But I mean, Rhaenys points this out even though too. Allison doesn't even see herself as a ruler. She sees herself as somebody who is a servant ultimately to another man. And so I think Otto calculated that he raised her and manipulated her to think that she is just an accessory to something to help usher in someone else or be by someone else's side. She's not someone who will take the throne, who will make those hard decisions. She's going to help position someone else. She's going to give them her opinions. She tells her own son, hey, don't listen to the hand on these issues, but she doesn't see herself as a leader. And they calculated that perfectly.
There's a line in that conversation that made me miss Viserys even more. Is when Alicent is saying to Rhaenys, like, you should have been on the front throne, number one. Like, you are by right, by birthright, and by temperament, you should have been on the throne. And then she changes it to talking about Viserys, and say, because then Viserys could have done what he really wanted to do. He could have moved out to an estate in the countryside. He could have studied the histories. He could have built his models of old Valeria, thank you. He could have built his models of old. He would have been happy.
Yes.
He would have been happy. And I love, too, that they did give us a few moments to show, in case there was any confusion about whether Alicent was just a pawn in her dad's game or actually had affection for Viserys. They gave us a few really important moments in this episode to show, like, she just weeps in privately over at his death. Like, she cared about him. She truly did.
I think she knew he was a good man, ultimately. And she had to accept the position that life dealt her in that time. But she realized he probably didn't abuse her. I mean, yeah, he probably wanted, he wanted to sleep with her when she didn't want to, but she also knew that was at the time, people didn't have that agency. But for the most part, he didn't beat her. He didn't treat her badly.
No, he always gave her a lot of respect, and he was always nice to her, and she had legitimate affection for him. And I think that was really nice. And I also love the fact that I remember somebody writing in on one of the after shows saying, hey, they call Aegon the this and whatever this. No, Viserys doesn't have one. We said, well, that probably comes after you die.
Yeah.
And we heard what it was, Viserys the Peaceful. And I'm like, that's the perfect name for him. Viserys the Peaceful, who life just always shit on all the time.
Yeah.
But that was good to see. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do. We are going to now take your live comments and questions that you guys have been sending in. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second here and thank one of the sponsors of our shows, our friends at DraftKings. Hey guys, we want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, DraftKings. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, so tip off the new season with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. So check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost up their winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Just go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, and place a stepped-up same-game parlay
parlay today. With payouts bigger than ever, DraftKings Sportsbook is where you need to go to bet on the NBA. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code CAMPEA, that's CAMPEA. Make any $5 bet this week and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code CAMPEA. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See the show notes for details.
And thank you to our friends at DraftKings for sponsoring this episode of our Game of Thrones House of the Dragon after show. All right, guys, with that down, let's now get over and see what you guys have to say about last night's episode. So, Chris, what do we got?
From Ravon, Larys would probably prefer the sides to be called House Targaryen and House Thigh Tower. Great episode.
I think we're
kind of funny.
I think we're in store for a lot of that. A lot of the Quentin Tarantino wet dream thing. I like it. Targaryen. Okay, that's a joke Ray would have come up with.
Those are the spinoffs that are going to be filmed in the Valley.
All right, what's next?
From James C. I wonder how the dragons will feel about fighting each other. They seem to have some personality, especially when Vhagar and Caraxes flew together in episode 6, or do they just obey their rider?
Well, I mean, it's going to be funny to see if any of the dragons who have always been with each other have to face off, like Vhagar and Daemon's Caraxes. Is that it? Like they were together for a number of years, so maybe there might be something there. But again, in that one episode, one of the early episodes, when Otto goes to Dragonstone to take Daemon, and it's like Rhaenyra showed up with her dragon. It looked like the two of them dragons didn't have a lot of qualms that they wanted to throw down. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach that. What's the impact of the dragon's social structure that, will they dare fight each other? So
a good question.
We will find that out soon enough, probably in the next episode. All right, what's next?
Roman Iakovets, sorry if I said your name wrong. It's cool that Sir Eric and Sir Eric Cargill are played by actual twins and not one actor playing two roles. Agree.
Yeah.
I still will never forget that after watching Social Network, I was like, man, I can't believe, like, those twins were amazing. I don't remember how they found them. Like, they weren't twins. It was one guy playing. I never knew. But yes, it works out. It's a lot cheaper to just find twin actors and get them to do it than try to do what they did in Social Network.
Imagine if he was a twin, no one would get away.
No one would get away. All right, what's next?
From Kyle D. The piano music throughout the episode gave me Light of the Seven vibes.
That was probably by design, don't you think?
I think so too.
Because that was a Seven thing. When he was anointing him as king, those were the different members of the Seven he was doing, right?
Yep. I mean, they had their things. And,
So now the Seven, I mean, Black Noir.
Right, yeah. Black Noir.
The Seven. Okay, sorry. What's next?
Right.
Again from Kyle D. Wanted her to say Jakar so bad.
So bad. I really did. But I knew that's not the way the show's going to go. So, but you're right. I really badly wanted to see. Oh, and what a great, every one of these dragons have had such a great design. But this one, I don't know the name of the dragon, might be the most badass. That's the most Dungeons and Dragons looking dragon I've seen so far. That dragon is badass. I love it. All right, what's next?
From Shay, is it me or does Larys Strong look like a creepy Pete Buttigieg? Anyway, this episode put Rhaenys at the top of my favorite character list.
I think a lot of people watching this show have been waiting for Rhaenys to last episode. She stood out last episode with the game she was playing in the whole hearing and all that kind of stuff. But this was her MVP. I mean, the episode was really Alicent's, but she was the MVP of this. Rhaenys here, really having that moment. And I think this has shown she's going to be still a force to be reckoned with in the finale and maybe beyond. We'll find out. All right, what's next?
From 253 Sir 3. I personally didn't like the ending of this episode. It seems a bit too much a CGI spectacle over a more logical ending. Rhaenys probably kills hundreds of common folk, but doesn't kill the usurpers.
Yeah, well, killing the usurpers, remember, that's still the royal family that's up there. And by extension, it's still her family. They are still kin to a degree, right? So there is all that. So that, I have no qualms with that. I have no problem with that. And it didn't at all feel like listen, they wanted an event that sparks, Rob, you were putting it this way earlier, This does not mark the lines being drawn, because we kind of saw that in a previous episode where you had the blacks and the greens on different sides. This was the it's on moment. That was it. And nothing short of a visible representation of that, as a dragon bursting through the floor in there, as menacing that, and literally having their lives in her hand. And that was the flare in the air saying it's on. The war is on.
And another thing, even though she burst up and probably hundreds of people did die, I don't know if it's hundreds, but the fact that she didn't, and that she did this that also says to the people, there's some shit going down here.
Yeah.
We're not happy. It was a big, bold statement to tell all of Westeros that there's shit happening that shouldn't be happening here.
Yeah, that there's a problem here.
Because everyone knew Rhaenys. The whole world knows who she is. She's the queen that never was. And when she does something like this, and everyone knows who she's married to, this is some shit. I mean, look, they do plays in the streets of Westeros about the royals. So I'm sure whatever royal tabloids of the day, whether it's, the town crier going, you'll never believe what happened at the coronation. And everyone's going to know.
All right, what's next?
From Dragon 10, this episode had all the political intrigue that I love. The small folk think the coronation is legit, but we saw all the maneuvering behind the scenes.
Yeah, and it's crazy, right? They try to push this through as quick as they could, and there it is. It's done. Like, Aegon is king. There's no challenge. And this, you're right, Rob. It was also a declaration to the west of Westeros. This is not uncontested. Mm-hmm. There is an issue. There's tomfoolery going on here.
And because Corlys couldn't be there, she's saying, House Valeria we don't support this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. She was speaking for the house.
Yes.
All right, what's next?
From Mike's Movie Madness, Alicent misunderstanding Viserys' final words ultimately made no difference. Otto's intention from the start was for Aegon to usurp Rhaenyra. That's why he was installing his loyalists on the council.
Yeah.
Except it did make a difference. And the difference was Alicent. Because you remember how I was just saying that one of Otto's maybe small miscalculations is there was really nothing stopping Alicent from in that small chamber saying, wait a minute, you were all planning this? Fucking dead. You're dead. I believe that the way they set things up, especially with that last family dinner, and the way it ended with Rhaenyra and Alicent reconciling and all that kind of stuff, I believe if Alicent did not believe that Viserys' last wish was that Aegon be king, I believe those guys in the small council would have ended up on the wall. I believe there's no way Alicent allowed this to happen. Like, of course, she wants her sons, but she trusts Rhaenyra. She believes in Rhaenyra, and we are not going to go after her and kill her. And she would have put a dead stop to it. And Otto wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. They all waited for Viserys to die. They could have made their moves with Viserys was all still laid up. They could have done something. They could have killed him secretly. They could have kept him infirm in a way, and they could have done all this without him. But they weren't going to do that because he was Viserys. They loved him. He was king. They waited till he died to these things. But yes, I don't believe the thought that Alicent misunderstanding Viserys' last wish, I don't believe at all that was inconsequential. I think it made all the difference in the world. But that's just my thought. All right, what's next?
From, we just did that. Jared Vester. Maybe it's just me, but even though Aegon has done some terrible, awful things, there are brief moments where I felt a little sad for him.
I mean, that is some damn brilliant writing when you can get me for even a moment to forget that this is an asshole of a kid, to feel a little bit of something for him. And listen, also, I think there's something revealed in that carriage ride with his mother. This kid grew up never believing his father loved him. This kid grew up never even feeling that his father thought much of him or anything like that. And yet, this was also a kid who had every privilege and all the power in the world. That's a bad mix for any kid. And I don't know if I would have turned out very well if I had that growing up. I mean, hopefully not as bad as he did, but it is interesting. Again, that's some really brilliant writing to make us feel that even for a character. When you can make us feel really conflicted over a character, even in just moments, that's some great writing.
Agreed.
All right, what's next?
From Lady Jennifer Snow. I never wanted to hear Dracarys uttered so much in my life. Princess Rhaenys has more restraint than I would have had. # Team Black.
I guess in that moment, the reality is, as much as like we have been on this audience journey, seeing everything with Rhaenyra and Alicent and Viserys and the functionings of Otto and all that kind of stuff. For Rhaenys, the reality is this: none of them ever wronged her, other than for a few hours inconveniencing her by keeping her locked in her room. Other than that, none of them have ever truly wronged her or hurt her. So that makes me even understand even more, while she's not like, I'm going to just bloodthirsty kill all of you.
Yeah, and also it is her brother. It's her brother.
Viserys is her cousin.
Her cousin. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's her cousin's son. That's
Yeah.
Aegon. So it's not like she doesn't know the shenanigans that have been pulled. She might know some of them, but I don't think in her mind these people deserve to die.
No, she remember, she doesn't live in King's Landing either.
No.
She lives off the Driftmark. Is that what they call
the
it?
Driftmark.
Yeah, she lives out there. So yeah. So it's a matter of, look, you guys are pulling shenanigans, but is it enough for me to pull a death sentence on 9 or 10 of you up on that thing that are my
That's her
cousin's
temperament,
kin?
like you said. That's
Yeah.
her temperament. She's not a murderer.
All right, what's
Yet.
next? Yet.
From Daniel Baccara, Rhaenys could have ended the war before it started, but already killed quite a few people. So close. Alicent really wanted to not cause harm to anyone, but Otto wanted his excuse to put forth his plan.
Wait, I don't understand what's he saying about Otto? Alicent really wanted not to cause
but Otto
harm.
wanted
okay,
his-
but excuse his plan, yeah.
He wants to kill him.
So I don't know, maybe we find out that nobody died. They could have pulled a Batman. Because in Batman, everybody says Batman doesn't kill. Batman does so much in the comics that would actually really kill people all the time. But the writers just say, no, that didn't kill them. That just hospitalized them. Maybe that's what they did in this. And no. There's like a lot of injuries, but thank goodness nobody died.
I thought you meant everyone was going to get new exoskeletons. Like,
Yeah,
I was like, they have that technology? That's cool.
that's right, my legs, no worry.
People
Tony's
did get
dank.
thrown about quite a bit, though.
Yeah. They've got
Yeah.
great health care there, I'm
They're gonna
sure,
have
though.
bumps and bruises,
So,
a few cuts and scrapes, a few
They're fine.
broken bones. But they'll
They're
just
okay.
Batman it. They'll say, actually they lived. They're fine. Because Rhaenys doesn't kill people.
Right.
All right, what's next?
Right.
Oops.
From Ismail Montoya. Hey, guys. Absolutely love this episode. The dragons are just incredible. Also, how about those stare downs at the end from Queen and the Team Green?
I mean, that was amazing. That was amazing. And listen, I still, from the moves that Rhaenys made in the last episode to stand by Rhaenyra, and even in this one to be dedicated to get back to warn Rhaenyra about what's coming, I still think she has designs on the throne. I think Rhaenys, as much as she said to her husband Corlys in that great exchange that they had, when she goes, I've let the throne thing go, you haven't. She's talking to Corlys, right? Even though she said that, I think down deep, she still has, maybe not to F anybody over, but she's got her own, I think she still has plans for the throne. I still think she does, but we'll see when we get there. All right, what's next?
From Hitchcock is the GOAT. I had no idea Tarantino wrote part of this episode.
Yep, he set the whole thing up. That was Tarantino scene all together. All right, what's next?
From Daniel Baccara. It's possible others would have risen up against Team Black if Rhaenys took out Team Green, but honestly, who's going to face their dragons?
Well, that's the thing too, because if they suddenly took out that group that was sitting up there, that takes out Aegon's dragon, that takes out Aemond and his dragon. It takes out, was there any, I don't think there were any other dragon riders up there. Yeah, because the daughter didn't get a dragon. So, listen, it would have ended the war. That there would be nobody else to stand in their way at that point. But again, it's, if you understand the story dynamic and Rhaenys being the one there, Rhaenys not being privy to a lot of stuff that we as the audience have been privy to, and she just sees a coup going on.
Yeah, and she thought probably she was close to death anyway. I mean, she's being spirited out of the castle. Come with me this way. Where are we going? I don't know. And they were running through the streets. It was tense. She just wanted to get to her dragon and get the F out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And she did, but got to make a statement while she was doing so, because I don't think she understood. She even says, "What is the meaning of this?" When she's been locked away.
She had no idea what was going on.
She didn't know what was going on. Like, I don't understand what's happening here. And she's like, "Well, you make it." Allison's like, "You better make your choice, and I'll come back. And when you've made your choice, you tell me, and I'll let you out." Meaning, when you've picked us and realize what we've done. And she doesn't do that.
Yeah, but I think what we know, because again, we've seen what happens behind the scenes with Allison, if Renice had refused to join her, Allison just would have kept her locked up until after the coronation and then probably let her go at that point. I mean, it's not what Otto would have done, but it's probably what Allison would have done.
Oh, the chat is saying that Helena does have a dragon, Dreamfire.
Really? Because I thought they made a point earlier that she didn't have one. Okay, good to know. All right, what's next?
From Alex von Gollum. Aegon's performance and personality at the coronation scene reminded me of Commodus.
Commodus.
Oh, thank you. I've never seen Gladiator. I know.
What?
I know.
Oh, my
I know.
God. Well,
he is going to be such a bad and reactionary king.
And the first person to tell you that is probably Aegon. Aegon will be the first one. I'm going to be a bad king. But man, he loved the adoration. He loved the cheers of the people. And that's the worst. Because when the cheers stop cheering, that's when they want to drop the hammer on his own people. And no, nothing good is going to come out of Aegon being king. No, not at all. Not in the least. All right, what's next?
From Bert, Renice intended to burn King Aegon and the Greens with her dragon Melis. Melis? I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. The flame was magically neutralized by Green's specially crafted plot armor.
Again, here's the thing. If you follow narratively, it really would not have made sense for her to do that. Look, as people who know Game of Thrones, we as the audience always expect that the characters know what we know, and they don't. They've never heard of the Dance of the Dragon, right? Dance of Dragons. We know about that there's a big Targaryen civil war coming. We know that a lot of people are going to die. We know about all the brutal, awful things that Aegon has done. We know about all this behind the scenes stuff. We know. Rhaenys didn't. Rhaenys okay, they're making a play on the throne. All right. Well, that's not going to stand. I'm going to go tell Rhaenyra. And then you guys, but they had never done anything to her. She's not a killer, at least not yet, at least that we've seen. And there was practically and functionally nothing there. Not to mention, if she had killed them right then and there, she could have been labeled as a traitor. She could have been the one that was like, you killed the king. You and your house will all burn. I mean, we got to remember, she's in the midst. 12 hours before that, she didn't have any idea about anything going on. Then she's confined to her room. She has a conversation with Allison. She's being rushed away and decides to at least make a statement. But again, I would contend, a lot of people saying, oh, it's a plot hole that she didn't kill them. Then you're not following the narrative, because the narrative for that character, there was no reason for her to kill everybody in that moment, because she doesn't know everything that we as the audience know.
And also royals, I mean, you have to remember that system they live in. Royals don't just wipe out other royal families when there's not been a declaration of war, or there's rules that they follow, as mixed up as that might seem. But there are, and she would be violating a lot of them if she were to do that, and she would have shamed her family. She would have, who knows what the results would have been over there at the Driftmark. Who knows? Yeah. Would she have started a war with the rest of Westeros? Would she have all the kings from other places ride or come up against her? She didn't know. She just wouldn't do that. That's not it's not done that way.
All right, what's next?
From Elif Belrasley, why didn't Rhaenys Dracarys the Greens? There would be no war. I just thought to myself, WTF? Do you think this will be addressed in the finale?
Well, again, we've just gone on about that. Because remember, to us, the war is a historical fact.
Right.
To them, the war is a theoretical possibility. It's two different things. And up until that moment, a war had not started.
And most people don't know about the beef anyway.
Yes.
I mean, this is an internal conflict that's happening. It's an internecine conflict within that castle. People don't know.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
From Kingly Clark, what was the building burning at the end of the episode, and who was walking away from it? Was it Aemond?
Well, it was I think the reason we didn't see a face is because we wouldn't have recognized the face and gone, well, wait a minute, I don't get it. Who was that? It was somebody Larys hired. Yeah. It was
one of the No Tonguey Boys.
Yep, one of the No Tonguey Boys.
Yep, that's their gang name.
Or it might have been a brand new Tonguey Boy. Or it was whatever, but it was the Worm's house.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not she was actually in it, we'll find out. Because if you don't die on camera, you didn't really die. Because remember, it's not like the Strongs, where we didn't see the moment they died, but we saw both of them trapped in there and the flames engulfing them and all that kind of stuff. This wasn't that. They didn't do an interior shot to show her going, oh my, I am trapped. What will I do?
Right.
They never did that. So I got a feeling she's still alive. All right, what's next?
From Sam Fisher, of course, Larys had a foot fetish because of his club foot, but I love the way that scene was shot.
Again, cinematography choices, telling narrative and story and exposition without the need of dialogue. I mean, we can sit here and of course we're going to sit here and joke about the feet. Of course we are. And wanking it to the Queen's feet. Sure. But there is still brilliant filmmaking in this scene. The way it's done, the shot choices, all that kind of stuff is just so well done. All right, what's next?
Jason A. I love that she could have ended this whole show with one word and just wanted everyone to know it. Dracarys, roll in credits.
Again, it would have been very out of character for her. There's not a lot of real reason why she would have done that. But yes, we know. But look, it's the same way as when we look back at the original Star Wars A New Hope. If that R5 unit didn't blow its motivator as it's rolling over to Luke, and they say, this one's got a bad motivator. It's like, what are you trying to pull on me? And they take, if that hadn't happened, we can look back on that now and say, well, that was pretty lucky that the entire future of the galaxy depended on that R5. Yeah, we can look at that now. And yes, we as people who know the history of that world know what's coming and know what's going to happen, but it's different for them.
Well, also remember, why did they want to have the coronation there? They wanted to have the coronation so all the people of Westeros, whoever wanted to show up, could watch it happen, as opposed to having it in the room with the Iron Throne amongst the lords and the ladies of the land. They needed the groundswell of support from the people to legitimize this transition of power. That was one of the reasons they did it in front of everybody.
Yep, that's absolutely, and that's why Alicent insisted, I want the whole of Westeros there. I want everybody there. That's why they were herding them all like cattle to get over there. All right, what's next?
From Sam Fisher, you know there's going to be a fight between Eric and Eric, with one or both of them dying.
It's going to be like the Mountain versus the Hound.
Yeah.
I mean, one is not obviously evil and one is not obviously what, but you're right. There is a brother versus brother situation coming, and it's going to be nasty and maybe even a little bit heartbreaking, but it is coming. All right, what's next?
From Elif Belrosli, sending in a $20 super chat, one of two.
Thank you, man, very much.
Have you seen Patty Constantine's Insta post episode 8? He thanked the actress who played his wife, Brooke Slane, and wrote, she unlocked the missing piece of the puzzle for me. From the moment she dies, so does Viserys. Aww.
I saw that post. It's really nice. It's quite long as well.
That's the secret I carried with me. He quietly accepts his suffering, never forgiving himself for putting his beloved wife through such torture in her final moments.
Yeah, well, what really sucks about that world is that if they hadn't done what he had done, her death was going to be no less easy, and like she was going to die. Oh God, I just love that last moment that he reaches out, because he doesn't say her name specifically, but you know that's who he was calling out to at the end when he said "my love."
Oh yeah,
right.
Of course.
It was, she was always, and again, that makes you really appreciate Alicent even more. That she knew she wasn't the love of Viserys, even though she loved him. She wasn't the love of his life.
No.
And yet she still did her duty, and she still was faithful, and I was like, just a lot of good things there. All right, what's next?
From Francisco Gomez Vega, House of the Dragon is a masterclass in writing. By the way, still remember Rob's first day on Collider Heroes. Man, that day Schnepp made a great and lengthy introduction of him. That's what led me to know Rob was awesome.
First of the Andals. Just kidding.
I still remember that first one that you came on.
That was that was when I met you.
Yep, you, me, and Schnepp.
April of 2015, dude.
All right, what's next?
From Tim Platt, Hot D shows children's eyes getting gouged out and a woman begging to bang her uncle. Nobody panics. But one scene with feet and everyone loses their minds.
I don't think anybody's losing their mind. I think everybody's laughing at it. It's like, it's like, oh my God. Just, and really, could it have been done with any more appropriate character than Middlefinger?
Well, it was just well, of course he does. Of course.
All right, what's next?
From Roberto Suarez, I believe Aegon in the prophecy is Jon Snow, and that is yet to be fulfilled in the upcoming Jon Snow series, rectifying Game of Thrones' lackluster finale.
Game of Thrones did not have a lackluster finale. It had a fabulous finale. Just get that out of the way right now. And I think it's pretty much commonly accepted now that Jon Snow is the one that they're referring to.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
Aegon's prophecy. I think we all generally accept that, although there might be some better theories out there.
Although I think it's true. I mean, I love the idea that, you know, after the whole Game of Thrones thing and Aegon Targaryen is banished beyond the wall, that he has to figure out a reason. I love stories like that. He has to come back and ascend to earn his place back in at the Iron Throne again. I mean, I love that idea. And what if, well, I won't get into it. I have an idea. But
All right. What's next?
From Ryan Launer, just keep in mind this whole time that Aegon's prophecy is complete bullshit, and it'll be someone with 0 Targaryen blood who uses the dagger in the end.
Yes, but that's taking a literal versus a metaphorical approach to it. It may be, you know, what's her name again? Anya? No, not Anya.
Arya?
Arya, thank you. Anya is a 1990s musical hit singer. But yeah.
That's Anya.
Anya, thank you. So she's the one who stabs the Night King. But it is Jon Snow who kind of brings the whole thing. He's the one who unites the worlds and unites everybody to stand against the thing. And who is the last person to pull the knife isn't necessarily a part of it. So yeah, the prophecy is actually quite true because just the very fact that there was a Night King and the White Walkers kind of proves it. All right, what's next?
From Sam Fisher, so is Aegon now worse than Joffrey?
No, not technically, not yet. I mean, Joffrey hasn't straight up murdered Aegon hasn't straight up murdered anybody yet or had anybody murdered.
And by the way, it's not like he set up those pit fights. You know, he just is enjoying what's already there.
Bad enough.
Pretty bad.
But
I mean,
not on Joffrey level yet. I think not on Joffrey level yet. The moment he drags some girl to watch her father be executed, then we can have the conversation.
Yes.
But so far, not quite as bad as Joffrey yet. All right, what's next?
he's just a rapist and a
Yeah. Oh, just a dick.
He's the worst. LeVar Hollis. Hello, lords and lady. Do you think Otto knows about Larys' toe passion since he said to Larys, I know about your hours spent with Alicent?
No.
yeah, no.
No,
I
I'm
think
going
he
to
knows
guess that
they're
he does
kicking
not.
it, but not kicking it.
Yes.
Like Larys is one of the few people who knows about Otto's spy network. Well, it's the Worm spy network, but that is in service to Otto. And so he would be the one person that knows how to avoid what they're seeing. So no, I don't think so, but it'd be interesting if we found out that it was. What if in that scene where it says, you know, Lord Hand, this could be to your advantage too. If like the next scene we cut back and Otto's sitting there with his bare feet up at the table and Larys is like,
Oh boy, that's
just throwing that out there. Now that's an image you'll never be able to get out of your
as you say,
mind.
no kink shaming.
All right. What's next?
From A-Rod 2006, Otto Hightower is easily more effective at being conniving and manipulative than Littlefinger ever was.
He had also a better position of power, right? Like he was in a position to move more pieces around the board as the hand. He could do a lot more. When he was removed out of his position of the hand, he wasn't able to do anything. Once his daughter restored that position to him, he was able to move a lot more pieces. So I would say he was in a much better position to get things done than Littlefinger was. Littlefinger, I would say though, thinks a few more steps ahead. Otto had one thing he was trying to do. Littlefinger always had a whole bunch of stuff he was doing. All right, what's next?
From Sam Fisher, do we think that Rhaenyra being considered a mad queen from the book is legit, or is it the unreliable narrator's warping of history?
I've never read the book. I don't give a shit about the book. All I care about is what's on the screen. So I have no opinion of that. So I can offer nothing on that, unfortunately. All right, what's next?
From Clapius, if the last episode sticks the landing, would House of the Dragon be in consideration as one of the best single seasons of TV?
Look, I think this season has been absolutely fabulous. I think it has far exceeded my expectations. I am thoroughly enjoying it, and I love it. I do not think it is one of the top 5 greatest single seasons of television ever. There are many others, but again, that is not to take away from how awesome I think this show is. It's absolutely incredible, but again, I think there's a recency bias in this. We as fans, me included, we are quick to try to label things that are out right now that are great as a best ever sort of thing. We try to get into the best ever conversations or worst ever conversations, and neither are particularly balanced. Look, I think we're really going to have to judge this season a year from now to see how it all, how we look at it in hindsight. But so I don't think it is in the running for one of the greatest seasons of TV of all time, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome nonetheless. All right, what's next?
From LeVar Hollis, question for the highborn members of the Campia court. Do you think they will have to tell Renice about her son since Team Black will need his dragon?
I do believe that Renice is going to find out her son's alive. I think there's going to be a moment where, out of just sheer gratitude, and because look, one of the consequences of what Renice just did is there's no going back now. Like, you can't switch sides anymore.
Yeah,
No, you cannot interrupt the coronation, burst through the thing, basically point a gun at the royal family, in this case a dragon, and then fly off to inform the She can't, she's got nowhere to go now. Her lot is in with Team Black. Her lot is in with Team Rhaenyra. And I have a feeling, I hope it anyway, I really want this scene to happen. I want to see this scene happen so bad. I think if nothing then out of pure gratitude, I think we're going to see a scene where Renice is saying something like, I lost my daughter. I'm at the cusp of losing my husband. I lost my son. I've now lost my station. I've lost everything. I think maybe then in that moment, Rhaenyra just goes, you know what? There's no consequences left anymore. You can't switch sides. So you know what? Your son lives. I want that scene so bad. I hope they do it.
Also, I mean, what I also like, the ramifications are basically, she just said, your sea power's gone.
Yeah.
She's like, don't you rely on, I mean, we'll blockade your ass, and that's what she did. She also declared war against the Greens from her side too. Ancient Valeria, whatever's left.
Although remember, she's not even the regent Lord of Driftmark anymore. Now Rhaenyra's son is the Lord of Driftmark.
Right.
So, I mean, but I think Rhaenyra will give her that. At least I really hope. Because I'd like to see Lenore come back, man. And his dragon. I'd love to see that. All right.
I think you will.
What's next?
From Glenn Mark, this episode was a feat in Tarantino filmmmaking.
Well
done, Glenn.
I didn't get it. Dun. All right, what's next?
From Kurt, I don't mean for things to get off the wrong foot, but how did Larys and the Queen's arrangement come to be?
Time jump.
Time jumps. The time jumps got us.
Yeah.
You go from just hanging out, having a nice din-din.
Hey, what do you think I should do about this political issue on the small council tomorrow? I could tell you, if there was one bare foot in the room, I might jog my imagination for coming up with a creative solution. Honestly, I don't know. How do you get any girl to do that? Number one. Number two, a queen. What's that?
We'll talk later.
We're talking. Masterclass by Jonathan Boyko. Oh yeah. All right. What's next?
Do we read this one?
Yes.
Okay.
From Arjan Athwal. I love how the show writes characters making human decisions, Renice not burning the greens. It's a shame some people see that as bad writing.
Yeah, again, it's only bad writing if you forget that this is a character in the show and not somebody who's been watching the show along with us. Because if Renice had been watching the show along with us and she saw Game of Thrones and she knows what's coming, all that kind of stuff, and then didn't burn them when she had the chance, oh yeah, well, that's totally different. But the character is who the character is.
And also, from her perspective, I mean, she's seen other lords and ladies, like she saw Homeboy hanging from the rafters.
Yeah.
And she doesn't, other than that, though, I don't think she really even understands what's happening. Not to the extent that, because there is a claim to be made that Aegon should be king. Maybe her brother or her cousin did say that he wants. She doesn't know. Does she know about the Song of Ice and Fire? Did Viserys ever share that with her? She
Probably
doesn't
not.
know. And that's another thing. The royals do things a certain way in Westeros, and I just don't feel that she would have just fried everybody.
By the way, I think there's a chance that she might know about the Song of Ice and Fire because, remember, in the prelude, I think her father had intended for her to take the Iron Throne, and then realizing, okay, it's going to cause a lot of problems amongst the king. You know what? So we're going to call it to a vote with all the lords. We're going to call it to a vote to avoid any of that kind of stuff. But he might have thought for a good portion of her life that she was going to take the Iron Throne, and then maybe shared it with her. I mean, I don't know. It's possible, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. It's a good question. What's next?
From Sam Fisher, I love Viserys' nickname, Viserys the Peaceful.
It was perfect. And, you know, somebody brought up the other week, says, what is his royal nickname going to be? I don't know, but you know, Viserys the Peaceful, perfect for the guy. Loved it. All right, what's next?
From Chase O, the fact that Daemon and Rhaenyra weren't in this episode makes me even more excited for the finale. The way they end the episode with Rhaenys was incredible. So excited for the last episode.
Yeah, now if you had told me going into that episode that we're not going to see Daemon or Rhaenyra, I would have been, all right, well, let's. I probably would have, but you know what? This episode needed them to not be there.
Yeah.
The focus had to clearly be on this. And, you know, we had to fully grasp the fact that at this point, Daemon and Rhaenyra are completely in the dark about what's going on. So it makes sense not to even go to them or show them. This needed to be on what was going on that side of the aisle. And I think it was probably the right decision, even though I would have winced if I found out in advance that they weren't going to be in it. All right, what's next?
From Arjun Athwal. This question is for Rob. As someone who has read the book, will next episode be more setup for season 2?
Can't answer that.
Or will something significant happen?
I haven't read the book, just so you guys know. I've not read the book. I've read things that tell me what's going on, but I haven't read all of those things. And I would assume, I don't know about the timeline, but there is something very significant, but I don't know where that is set.
Whether
Because
that comes this
remember
episode, episode for season 4.
It's not like a traditional book. It's more like an account, a historical account of what happens. So it's not like Game of Thrones, the novel. This is more of an account. It's more, it's like that.
All right, what's
But
next?
there is a big thing coming.
From LeVar Hollis, Larys wants to take Alicent for drinks and clubbing.
Damn right.
Oh, that's bad.
Clubbing.
Bad.
Get it?
Nope.
Bad.
Get it?
Bad.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
From Sam Fisher, does Alicent know about the wanking because her head was turned? Yeah, that's why she turned her
Why
head.
do you think she turned her head? Why do you think
No.
she brought up her feet into view and then turned her head away? Yeah. Yeah, she does. All right, what's next? And this wasn't their first rodeo.
Yeah. Arjun Athwal, have you guys noticed that whenever Rhaenys' dragon is on screen, it seems significantly faster than the others?
Every dragon has its own thing. Some of the strongest, some of the biggest, and maybe hers is the fastest. I mean,
Yeah, it could be.
all I know is that the design of that dragon was
Badass.
all kinds of freaking awesome. Absolutely loved it. All right, what's next?
From a late night alum, it's official. Larys is the Rex Ryan of Game of Thrones world. I
Wait.
don't know that reference.
Well, Rex Ryan is a NFL coach. Not right now. Now he's a commentator. He used to be the coach of the New York Jets when Mark, the Sanchez was their quarterback there. Did he had a feet thing? I don't recall that. I don't recall. All right, what's next?
From Glenn Mark again, I could be wrong, but I think Rhaenys gave Alicent her answer.
Yeah, very subtly.
Super subtle.
Very, very subtle.
You
Little.
didn't get what I was saying.
Yeah, it just you have to infer, you have to interpret it a little bit. Yeah. All right, what's next?
From Alif Barasley, do you think that Alicent is resentful or her father of her father for putting her in the position she's currently in?
Absolutely. And I think she made no qualms about that when she went to confront him. Like, it's like this whole thing. She even almost directly said, like, yeah, you say, oh, you did this for me, but this was about your designs. This is about what you wanted to have and all that kind of stuff. So, but hey, listen, you ended up being queen. So, so do I think she's a bit resentful? I do. Listen, while I am Team Black, I actually find Alicent to be a very sympathetic character. I really do. I think
I like episode to episode. She was unsympathetic. This episode, she was very sympathetic.
Yeah. But even the last one, right? Like, she legitimately wanted to make peace with Rhaenyra. Like, she had come around, she didn't want Rhaenyra to go. Maybe if Rhaenyra hadn't gone, some of this might have gone differently. She didn't want her to go. And honestly, she thought she heard her husband say what she wanted to hear, that she wanted Aegon to be king. And I honestly believe that had that not happened, she would not be going along with this thing at all. So I actually find her very sympathetic, even though I'm Team Rhaenyra. All right, what's next?
From Argent Othwell, I know John warned of recency bias, but after watching through season 1 of Game of Thrones recently, this season might be better, especially if the finale is good.
You gotta remember, though, that House of the Dragon has the advantage of, like, for a season 1, had the advantage of that it didn't really need to world build, or at least do a lot less world building, because it got to build on the foundation that Game of Thrones did. When Game of Thrones was introduced to the world, at least the wider world on HBO, the books were obviously there, but not as big of an audience.
Right.
When it was introduced, it was them establishing a whole new world that nobody had ever seen or heard of, with all this kind of stuff. As we come into House of the Dragon, it has a significant advantage there, that it gets to stand on the shoulders of and build off the foundation that had. So it has quite a bit of an advantage. Still, even with that one advantage, and that significant major advantage, was it able to take advantage of that advantage and be the better season 1 than the first season of Game of Thrones? I'll say yes. But with the asterisk that it was only able to do that because Game of Thrones was there. But still, yeah, I think I'll agree that season 1, in general, in a void, is the better season.
I think so too. But another thing that House of the Dragon has going for it that Game of Thrones didn't is, unless you'd read the books, you had really no idea what was happening at the beginning of Game of Thrones. It took a whole season to unfold before you actually really understood what were the stakes, who are all these people, where are they going? Because just Ned Stark going to Winterfell going from Winterfell to King's Landing was only part of it, because you're thinking, what does Robert Baratheon have to do with all this? You're trying to figure out what's going on. With this, it was very apparent the way they set it up. This is a family that's going to be torn asunder from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So it was much easier to follow. And it also wasn't all over the place.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
From Arjun Othwell. Excuse me. Andy. Hot D was wild. Can't believe Hallbrand is Sauron.
You see how it is. Like, talk about one, talk about the other. I talked about that on the Rings of Power after show the other day, but yeah.
We didn't get to talk about this. I was so annoyed by that, where I was like, no, I don't want a 2 for switcheroo. I don't want that.
A 2 for switcheroo?
Yeah, of like, oh my gosh, he's a secret king. Oh my gosh, he's Hellbrand, which a friend of mine was like, the minute you meet him, he talks about how looks could be deceiving. Why didn't you get this? And I was like, because it was right there, and I didn't want that, and it didn't match the books, and I finally am one of those people, and I'm angry about it.
I thought it was great.
Someone said to me to ask you to do your impression of Galadriel because it was the funniest thing they saw last week. What Galadriel impression did you do?
I'm not sure.
You did
I know. Okay, so it's just talking about one of the things that I really liked about. I mean, this show did not end up being as good as I was hoping it would be. House of the Dragon is clearly. I mean, you may disagree. You may think Rings of Power was the better show, and if you did, that's awesome. I'm not refuting. I'm just saying, for me, House of the Dragon was clearly the better show. But one of the things that I really did like was the use of Galadriel, because we see what evolves into the Galadriel we see in Lord of the Rings. The fact that she's almost a recluse, the fact that she is so quiet, the fact that she kind of stays behind the scenes now more than anything else. It's because of what she was. And I said, this to me colors, and you remember this, we were talking about this, because in that scene in Lord of the Rings, when Frodo tries to give her the ring, and she says, oh, you give me that, but I'll become a queen. Like all that kind of stuff. That suddenly now, seeing the Galadriel in Rings of Power.
Was that your impression?
That was my impression. Seeing Galadriel in Rings of Power now makes that scene make sense to me. Because, look, you don't want me to turn back into what I was. Like anything like that. Like, I just think it was, that was one of the things that I think they did quite well.
It was like Kate Blanchett was in the room.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wowza.
All right.
Kate Blanchett.
What's next?
Taylor's impression of it kills me when Taylor does the I'm Kate Blanchett.
My water.
It's the best.
You can get a 2 for switcheroo in Amsterdam.
Whoa.
Oh, boy.
All right, what's next?
From Elijah McGaughan, King Viserys the Peaceful. I'm not crying, you are.
Oh, I know. It made me miss him so much. It was such a good. That's the title he deserved.
I love him.
The title he deserved. How will people remember me?
Oh, sweet boy.
You're gonna be King Viserys the Peaceful, man. I don't think there's a better one he would have wanted.
No, I agree.
All right, what's next?
the King Viserys, all my kids get along. I mean,
Yeah, maybe
movie.
that one would be good too.
My Comic Planet, I was watching the episode with some friends and we were all screaming at the TV at the end. Damn it, say it, Rennie. Say it. Say Dracarys.
Oh, we all did.
Oh, yeah.
We all did.
We all were just like, wow. I know why you're not going to, but could you just say it?
I know.
I will say, I love that Allison just accepted it. Like, she just closed her eyes, got in
Grabbed
front of
her
her
son.
kids, and was like,
Yep.
Death has come for me. That's fine.
Yep. It's the end. Here we go. All right. What's next?
From Andy, every woman is an image of the mother to be spoken of with reverence. Right, Kristen Cole. Makes total sense as to why he called Rhaenyra the C word.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember at first I thought that is an excellent line. Excellent line. But I thought, wait a minute, asshole. You have no right to say that line.
People are multifaceted. He was dissed by her. That's why he's angry.
Well, yeah.
Spurned.
But like he has major incel vibes. I mean, it's just like we need to respect women, but women who wrong me and don't do what I like,
I think
they're
that's
C
kind of the
words.
point, though.
Oh, I
It's
hate him.
definitely
I hate him
point.
so
I
much.
hate him so much. All right. What's next?
From My Comic Planet, this episode highlights that Rhaenyra never should have left. She should have stayed and played the game.
Maybe, but it's easy to say that when it's not your children's lives are in danger. She knew the longer they were there, it was only going to make things potentially more dangerous for her kids. So I do get it. I get the reason why they left. All right, what's next?
From Harv's K, I like Alicent, but it's just too easy to root against Team Green because she's surrounded by such a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Which
Dad
almost,
included.
which is partially why I find her sympathetic, because the people who are kind of on her side are assholes. So it just makes it even easier to root against her. Even though, again, I'm Team Rhaenyra, but I'm very sympathetic to Alicent.
I'm sympathetic to all of them because I think what they're doing is essentially correct. Because you can't have a female queen of Westeros. I mean, that's where that all began. When Viserys said, "My daughter is my heir," that's when things started to go south.
Get all pear-shaped.
Yeah, well, at least, listen, fuck Otto. All right, what's next?
From Andy, astute point. I loved it. Every time Aegon tells someone he doesn't want the Iron Throne, he should do it like the other Aegon, Jon Snow, and say, "I don't want it.
I don't want
I
it.
don't want it."
Only he's, not nearly as nice as Jon Snow.
No.
Oh, God. I mean, I don't know. I'm still fascinated with how Aemond is going to play into this, because that whole thing ain't done. They didn't set this whole thing up about I should be the one. I'm the one who trained. I'm the one who studied. I'm the one who should be taking this throne. I don't think that's done. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I don't
We'll
think
see.
it's done either.
Because he's an entitled little prick, so I'm sure he's like, wait, no, people cheer for me when I'm in a room with them and I hold my sword up in the air. Yay,
Plus,
me.
he's got a grudge against
Yeah,
somebody.
I think Aemond is going to do
By the way, the way he
messed up
started playing
stuff.
the crowd, like for those of you who are not familiar with the history of WWE or WWF, you won't get this, but I seriously half expected Aegon to start going. I mean, that's what it looked like he was doing. Again, only
At the very least, a woo.
at very least a woo, but only people who are really knowledgeable about the history of WWE will
I
get
did
that.
like, though, that how Aegon finally realized, like, maybe this won't be so bad.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, everybody scream my name. Look at all the lovely ladies in the audience.
Yeah.
So many windows for me to wank out of. It'll be great, with or without feet. Okay, what's next?
From Babyface Pawlowski. Hi, everyone. Rhaenys' dragon design is my favorite. I wonder, what are all your favorite dragons that we've seen so far in the series? Ooh.
Well, first of all, Damon's like more Asian historical dragon design, really awesome. Vagar
Vagar's cool.
Vagar, but I really think Rhaenys' is my favorite design so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a cool spaceship.
All right, what's next?
From My Comic Planet, after 8 full seasons of Game of Thrones in all its gruesome, violent display, somehow the most disturbing scene was a dude getting off to Alicent's feet. LOL.
I love it because you're absolutely right. And I love it when a show or movie can do that. Like, I go back to A Quiet Place a lot. And a movie about these sci-fi monsters that come to Earth and rip people to shreds. The most gut-churning, terrifying moment of that movie was a lady walking down some stairs knowing as the audience that there was a rusty nail sticking up out of one. Like, nothing else in that movie made me go, ah, ah, as much as that. And you're right. With people, there's a dude hanging from a wall by his neck,
Like
dead.
a lord.
A lord,
Like a
hanging
highborn.
there. And I was far more grossed out by that scene with feet. That's far more gross. It's amazing when shows can pull that off. All right, what's next?
For Matt Sanders, such an amazing show. Oh, and this is a $20 super chat. So thank you so much,
thank you, Matt.
Such an amazing show. So sad that we won't have another episode and won't have an after show the week after next. Thanks for the after show, guys. Oh,
Thank you so much. And listen, let's stay positive here. We still got another one. We only have one left. We still got another one. Then we got to figure out what we're doing with after shows after that, because we don't have our next one lined up or know what it's going to be for sure. But maybe it'll be Yellowstone. Maybe it'll be I don't know. We'll figure that out. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun to do these, and we still got one more to go. All right, what's next?
From Jay King, I thought the civilian casualties in the dragon pit are a perfect representation of when the dragons dance, it's the small folk who are trampled. Yeah. Ooh, Jay. Ooh. Yes.
But again, they Batmaned it. Nobody died.
Everyone's fine.
Few bumps and bruises.
They're just sleeping.
Yeah, some of them had to go to the infirmary. Some of them had to go to their version of the hospital.
Taking a little dirt nap.
Yep. They just Batmaned it. It's all good. It's all good. And is that it?
Woo!
Well, guys, that'll do it for this installment of our Game of Thrones House of the Dragon open spoiler after show talking about episode 9. We are so glad you decided to join us and make this show part of your day. I want to thank all of you guys, especially those of you who sent in super chats. Number one, because you gave us really fun things to think about. And number two, you supported us as you did it. And all of us involved with the channel, thank you guys so very much for that support. I also want to thank the people in the room with me. First of all, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people follow you online?
Find me on Instagram at RM Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on YouTube at PostGeek Singularity.
And right beside him, of course, is Chris Carr. Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on the internets at actor Chris Carr, or if you're interested in voiceover, at SpeakFriend Studios.
And of course, running the show today, sitting back there, our producer, Jonathan Voico. Jonathan, where can people find you? All right, and you guys can, of course, follow me on Instagram simply at John Campia. All right, guys, that'll do it for us for now. Make sure you come back and join us for the John Campia Show tomorrow, because apparently Hollywood Reporter's saying there's a Man of Steel 2. Oh, we're going to have some stuff to talk about tomorrow. I'm bringing champagne. I'm bringing barbecue. We are going to dance like it's 1999. Anyway, make sure you guys come back and join us for the show tomorrow. That'll do it for us for now. My name's John Campia, and until next time, my friends, feet.